Do you sometimes ignore calls, avoid messages, or slowly disappear from people's lives? And the strangest part, instead of feeling lonely, you actually feel peaceful. Why does that happen? And what does psychology say about people who quietly cut others off? Let's have a look. Most people assume that distancing yourself from others means something is wrong. But psychology suggests something much deeper might be happening. In many cases, cutting people off isn't about hatred or coldness. It's about something your brain learned long ago. And once you understand it, you might start seeing your own behavior very differently. Point 1. The moment something inside you changes. Almost everyone who starts distancing themselves has a moment where something shifts. Before that, you were probably the reliable one, the person who always listened, the one people called when they had problems. You gave advice. You supported them. You tried to keep everyone happy. But over time, you started noticing a pattern. The same people kept taking your energy, but rarely gave anything back. And one day, you simply stopped answering. But here's the interesting part. When you stopped, the world didn't fall apart. Instead, things got quieter. And that quiet felt strangely peaceful. Why? Point 2. Your brain might be protecting you. Psychology suggests that sometimes your nervous system is simply trying to protect you. When someone repeatedly drains your emotional energy, your brain starts recognizing them as a threat. Not a physical threat, but an emotional one. So instead of staying in constant connection mode, your brain may switch into a protective state. A state where distance suddenly feels safer than closeness. But this raises an important question. Where did your brain learn that protecting yourself this way was necessary? Point 3. It often starts much earlier than you think. For many people, this pattern doesn't begin in adulthood. It begins much earlier. Maybe you grew up in an environment where emotions were unpredictable. Maybe you learned to read people's moods carefully. You noticed tension in a room before anyone spoke. You sensed when someone was upset, even when they said nothing. And slowly, your brain learned an important lesson. Sometimes distance is the safest option. But here's where it becomes complicated. Because not every person deserves to be kept at a distance. So, how do you tell the difference? Point 4. The difference between boundaries and walls. There is a big psychological difference between protecting your peace and shutting everyone out. Walls block everyone. Good people, bad people, everyone. But boundaries are different. Boundaries are selective. They allow the right people in while keeping the draining ones out. And here's something interesting to think about. If you cut someone off and immediately felt relief, that feeling might actually be information. Your mind could be telling you something you've been ignoring for a long time. But there's another fascinating trait people like you often develop. Point 5. You become extremely good at reading people. People who distance themselves often become incredibly good at noticing patterns. You start seeing behaviors others miss. The friend who only calls when they need something. The person who gives compliments, but somehow they feel like criticism. The people who disappear when you need support. At first, these patterns are confusing, but eventually your brain connects the dots. And once you see the pattern, it becomes very hard to ignore it, which leads to an important realization. Maybe you're not pushing people away randomly. Maybe you're becoming more selective. Point 6. Solitude isn't always loneliness. There's a huge psychological difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is when you want connection but can't find it. Solitude is when you choose peace over chaos. And many people who distance themselves aren't lonely at all. They're simply tired of relationships that feel draining. But here's the deeper question. Are you protecting your peace? Or have you slowly started protecting it from everyone? Because sometimes the goal isn't to cut people off. It's to find a few people who actually respect your energy. Psychology shows that a happy life isn't about having a large circle. It's about having the right circle. A few people who genuinely understand you can matter more than dozens who only take your energy. So if your circle has become smaller over time, maybe it's not a failure. Maybe it's clarity.